Welcome back to Chronic Boss Unfiltered. I'm your host, Lilly Stairs, and today I am so thrilled to be joined by someone whose journey really embodies resilience, creativity, and as you will hear, the power of pivoting. Alex Wildson.
Hey,
Alex, we're so excited to have you here.
thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course. So Alex has built this absolutely incredible career. She started in finance and hard asset investing, became a VC partner, and launched creative ventures of her own. She's the founder and the host of Calling in Sick, which is a podcast and platform that's redefining what it means to live and lead with chronic illness. Alex, I'm just so happy you're here. I'd love to have you jump in and introduce yourself in your own words.
Absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me. I love what you do. I love how you encourage people to find their passions and chase that, because life with chronic illness is totally unconventional. And like you said earlier, you have to kind of learn how to pivot with it all. But I will share my pivot story. I think I've done at least 10 at this point. Quick background on me. Grew up in a very small farm town in Indiana, went to SMU on a full ride scholarship, studied finance there. SMU is in Dallas. The finance program was hyper-focused on oil and gas because there's just like a direct pipeline to Houston. So my junior year, did all of the investment banking interviews and whatnot. Was lucky enough to get a job at a group called TPH that spun out of Goldman Sachs. And I spent about 2 years there doing oil and gas investment banking. I learned how to do basically oil and gas engineering. I learned how to do more of the IR facing skills. So I thought when I first started, I loved it. I loved the pace of it. I was kind of addicted to like the competition that is investment banking. I like to brag about how late I could stay up. Unfortunately, that was like the worst possible thing I could do for my health. But it was really fun for those 2 years. Thought I'd chase this whole career down that line. But kind of by the end of that 1.5 year point in my career of investment banking, I started getting really, really sick. I had a UTI that turned into a bladder infection that turned into a kidney infection. Didn't take time off work because I was in the trenches of investment banking, which is like working 100, 120-hour weeks, pulling all-nighters, working Saturdays and Sundays. It was tough. I just didn't feel like I had time to take care of myself. So my body made the decision for me, quit my job, called KKR, said, hey, I don't think I'm going to be able to come and do this. Like, I have to do something else with my life. They were so kind and supportive and said, if you want to take a year and come back, we'll have you. So like, that's on the table. So I left that door open for a little bit. But I moved to Austin and my symptoms just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And at that point, my now husband, then boyfriend, Coop, was living in Dallas. And he was like, I just don't think you should keep going into these like 120-hour week jobs. I feel like we already know that you're autoimmune and that cannot be good for us. I said, okay, I think that's probably reasonable. So I took about 5 months off and tried to figure out what I wanted to do next. I fell into that trap of, okay, I'm feeling better. I think I can do anything I want again. So I found another company that had spun out of Goldman Sachs. I decided to go work there, lesson not learned, and did real estate private equity for a little bit. And then I decided, okay, this is still the same hours. And I now have 2 more chronic illness diagnoses. I can't do this anymore. During that time period, I'd had like 5 surgeries. I'd gone on chemotherapy. I'd been hospitalized so many times, but I was working through all of it.
Oh my God.
Not healthy by any means. And I think I had the aha moment of, if I want to be a mom one day, if I want to have a full life one day, I can't just do work, even though that was my identity and my North Star for my entire life. It was just like high performing, high achieving, hyper competitive. So I thought, what's an quote unquote easier finance job? Pension. I worked at the teachers retirement system of Texas. So it's the pensions that go for all of the state teachers in the state of Texas. I was really lucky. Most pension jobs are known as being kind of sleepy. And I thought, okay, I'll just clock in and clock out, I guess. That was not the case. When I got there, it was the very first time where our venture book was looking to be redone and rehauled. And so I hit a pension at the one entrepreneurial window that happens every 20 years. And I loved it. I was so excited. So I got to redo our entire venture book. I deployed $5 billion into the industry. And then venture valuations fell out in 2021 and 2022. And our CIO said, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to just re-up with existing managers, no new relationships. So I said, okay, I have the entrepreneur bug though. I think I need to start looking for other things. So I started, like, the writing was on the wall. I started looking for my next gig. And then I had the spinal surgery in November of 2023 that was botched. I woke up paralyzed. I had to have a second spinal surgery, spent a month in the hospital, and went on medical leave for basically the first time in my life, in my entire career. And it was during that medical leave that I realized I don't think I'm going to recover from the spine injury in the window that they need me to. And for some reason, it was easier in my mind to step out of a traditional finance career because of an injury instead of my chronic illness. I didn't want to let my chronic illness take that away from me. So during my medical leave, this is something that will like hold true through my whole story. I'm a sociopath. I decided to launch 3 businesses during that time period. Launched my podcast. I launched my social media content creating career. And I started a consulting firm with my sister, who was the CMO of Bumble. So we were helping startups kind of navigate storytelling and fundraising, and then also did the same for emerging venture managers. Loved it, fell in love with the venture emerging manager space, ended up becoming a partner at a venture manager firm called Hot Start. We invest in celebrity founded CPG companies. Can get into all of that tea later on, but it's super fascinating thesis and like very differentiated in the space, which makes me very excited, obviously. And now I'm a year into all of it and working on an app on the side because I like to apparently never sleep, and we're just going along with it.
My head is spinning from all of the different things that you do. I wish I was a finance girly, but alas, I am not. And so like half the words you said, I'm like so impressed with just like everything that's in your brain, and to have that finance side of your brain as well as the creative side is really such an anomaly and incredible. And I'm really curious because you've brought these very different worlds together. So on one side, you've got the VC, you've got the finance, you've got just like this hard hitting career. And then on the other side, you've developed this really creative, compassionate storytelling brand. And so I'm curious, how do you integrate these? Like, where's the overlap, and how has your background in VC and investing shaped how you approach your advocacy work and building narratives and communities?
It's a good question. I think for a long time, I felt like they were totally split worlds, that I was living 2 different lives. But candidly, in my finance career, I was the person that, yes, was obviously doing the financial models and whatnot, but from day one, as like an analyst in investment banking, I was being put into the meeting room with the CEOs of all the different companies because of my personal skills. When you're in a group of primarily younger men and you're the only girl and you're chatty and you're not the personality hire, but you also are the personality hire, you get afforded these interesting opportunities. So I was put in the room really early and learned how to talk to people and to storytell in a totally different way. Where all my peers were presenting information, I was telling the story of how these assets came to be and why they were interesting and whatnot. So it was just very different approach that was, I think, came from like who I am. So when I transitioned away from hard assets into VC, that nature really shined, and it made me be able to stand out a little bit, because storytelling is what really is the core of anything. As a brand launches, as a firm grows, it's the narrative that you put in front of other people to consume that allows them to be interested, grow fondness, and then grow community around you. So that skill set, very strangely, actually did come from the finance side. And it's been so fun to step out of the like selling world into just building a community. And I think because I didn't put on the selling hat while building this content creation and podcasting, it came out of just candidly, I was bored and I wanted to connect with people that were also sick, and I wanted to do something different, but I didn't see it as a business at first. It allowed me to approach it in the same vein, but a little bit differently, I think.
Yeah, and very authentically, that you weren't approaching it as a business. So let's talk about Calling in Sick, this amazing platform and podcast that you've built very quickly, and it's been really successful. So walk me through the genesis of this.
So it was January 2024. There was some trend on TikTok. I'd never posted a TikTok video in my entire life. And it was, you have something if you blink. And I did a bunch of different skits with it, and it went viral. It was my first video ever. And I was like, oh, this is really addicting. Like, this is not good for me. It went viral.
God, that's so cool.
And it was that instant dopamine hit that was very reminiscent of investment banking days, of like a deal going through or getting good feedback. And I was like, oh no, this is not good. This is not good for me. Turns out it was really good for me. I loved it. So I started just talking to my audience, like I was FaceTiming my friend or showing insights of coups in my life. And when I started seeing that people liked how I was sharing my life, I stepped away and my little analytical brain was like, why? What makes me different? And I think it's because I don't want to only show chronic illness. I want to show everything. I think it's really, really important to not lose ourselves in anything. And that is not just unique to chronic illness. You can obviously lose your identity into your illness, but that happens to people that aren't sick. You lose yourself in your career, you lose yourself in your familial role. And I wanted to show that you don't have to do that. You can lose yourself in 15 different places at the same time. You can do more than lose yourself in one place. So that was kind of the starting point, I guess. And then I wanted to have moments where I could talk to other people in a more formal space. So launched the podcast. And since then, it's just been growing. And it's been amazing to just see the feedback on it. I think the North Stars of it are that it is a place to find hope, a place to find community, a place to feel seen and heard. It's not a place to trauma dump and be mean to people and one up people. It's not a place to get medical advice necessarily, but it's a safe space. It's your best friend group that you wish that you had.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. And it's something that I really admire about what you've built, because not unlike Chronic Boss, right? We are trying to create a space that honors these different parts of who you are, and that it doesn't have to be all one thing. And so it's like, that's how I felt when we started Chronic Boss. Was I saw that there were these support groups that were happening, that were for people. And there was the trauma dumping was there, the who's the sickest, I'm like, I don't want to be the sickest.
No.
There's
worst award ever.
Yeah, worst word ever. And then on the flip side, when I was looking at like the networking groups and the career oriented groups, which I loved, and the professional development, there was this element of health and wellness missing, especially when you have a chronic condition, and that's impacting how you show up at work. And so I love the way that you have also focused on all these different parts of you. And I think it's so important for the next generation, for our generation, in generations ahead of us, to see that you can thrive. And there's, you don't have to just be the girl who's sick, right?
No. Good Lord. I think resigning to anything in life is a detriment to yourself. And that happens when we lose hope. And so if I can do anything and give someone a seed of hope to pick themselves back up the next day or the next hour and keep going, they don't have to resign to just being sick. They can find ways to live a unique and unconventional life like me. Like, I have 6 diseases that are incredibly debilitating. And sometimes they do absolutely ruin my life and my day and my mentality. But I don't ever let it completely crush me and strip me away from the other parts of me, because life's too short to just give up, honestly.
So beautifully said. You have a real way with words, Alex, and that's why you are a fabulous podcast host.
Thank you.
Also, so I want to talk a little bit about this too in podcasting. Something that we like to do on our Chronic Boss Unfiltered podcast is get advice from amazing business owners like you. And so we have a lot of members of our community who they have their own podcast. They're thinking about launching a podcast or a brand. I'm curious, what's your advice to folks who want to do this? How can they leverage it for their brand and maybe even monetize it?
Yeah, I think first step is just ripping the Band-Aid off. A lot of us in the chronic illness space are type A, people pleasers, high stress. We don't want to put anything out there. And also 70% of us are female. Yeah. So there's a whole psychology of women in business of not wanting to show what you're doing until it's perfect, until you've deemed it perfect. Most 51% of the world does not give a shit if it's perfect or not. I don't know if you can swear on this. Nobody cares if it's perfect or not. So rip the Band-Aid off. You're the only one that's going to notice if something's not absolutely done correctly. But you want to have that initial reaction from the public to understand, like, is this worth trying to make into a business, or is this more of like a hobby and something I personally love and it brings me joy? If it seems like there's good reception for it, that's when I think you lean in and you figure out how to make the puzzle work together. I think we're in a really, really, really special time in life where we have technology that actually unlocks business ownership and development for people with chronic illnesses or disabilities in a way that has never been possible before. I have terrible brain fog. I've talked about it on my podcast before. There are times where I will record a solo episode for 3 hours and it gets cut down to 30 minutes because my brain fog's so bad. I go on tangents, I stumble over words, and I don't want anybody to have to subject themselves to listening to that. But the nice thing is that there's editing tools. There's Chat GPT to help you find the words when you can't find them yourselves. And leveraging that allows you to open up, I think, an opportunity that would have in the past seemed really, really scary or daunting. It is your partners in crime. You aren't launching a business by yourself then. So that, I think, is like my number one tip is use the tools at your disposal. Those can help you go past 0 to 1, and 0 to 1 is the hardest jump to make.
So articulate, so well said. I mean, I also think, and I love use the tools because there are amazing tools at your disposal. And also, we've never had this before, this ability to reach so many people. Any of us can reach out and make an impact, which is really remarkable.
Really special.
If you think back many, many years. So when social media didn't exist, it was these few people in power who were able to run the newspaper or be on the radio station we all have a mic now. And there is somebody that you could really impact and influence and help if you just get on it. And
100%.
Yeah.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Rip the Band-Aid. I love that. Okay. Amazing advice. So, all right. Now I want to talk a little bit about all of these different businesses, initiatives. And on top of that, you're a wife and you're a friend and you're a daughter and all of those things. So how on earth do you balance all of this? Like, do you have boundaries? How do you manage your energy? How are you keeping up with all of it?
Boundaries and delegation through and through. And those are two things I don't think I knew very well when I was working for somebody else. But when I started working for myself, I could not do what I'm doing without those two things. So I'm pretty strict on my boundaries on like when I'm done with work. I know my brain fog seems to lift magically around 10 a.m. and it starts to come right back in around 3-4 p.m. So those are my work hours. And if I'm having a bad day, I'm having a bad day and I'm not having meetings. I'm working from my bed if I need to. But my boundary is health first. I also have boundaries around, I guess, availability to other people. I grew up in my career in investment banking, where if you did not respond to an email or a text within 5 minutes, you're on the no-no list, that you're getting in trouble. That anxiety was so intense and really, really hard to break up with. And now I've probably swung the pendulum way too far and have way too many notifications on my phone at the time. It's like a little overwhelming, but I don't feel guilty about it anymore. And I think that's really, really critical. So like knowing how to protect your time, your peace, and your energy is crucial. And then delegating, you don't have to do it all. I think that's like one of the biggest lessons I've learned in entrepreneurship with chronic illness is we can't do it all. And that's a hard thing to recognize identity-wise. But when you do, it's so liberating because all of a sudden you realize, okay, so then what do I like to do out of everything? I'll own that. Who can I find to help me do all the stuff I don't like? Because inevitably there's someone who loves doing that part of whatever it is. So for Calling in Sick, we actually have a pretty big team. We have an editor on the network side. We have an editor and a producer that are just for our show. And then on Calling in Sick, like internal, it's me and 4 other girls. And we all have chronic illnesses. There is a time limit and cap on what everyone's deliverables are every single week. So no one gets overwhelmed. There is backup. So if anyone has a bad day, bad week, whatever, there's no stress with that. But that delegation of some of the more menial or like desk work aspects that just were not giving me joy, I needed to find people that wanted to do those things. And there are people in our community that wanted to do that. I'd been getting DMs for a whole year of like, if there's an option to help you on Calling in Sick, I want to do it. So letting people in is huge.
Oh, I was going to ask how you found these people to support you and they're members of your community. How perfect.
Exactly. Just, I think, use your own community within you. My sister was the 5th employee at Bumble, and watching her grow that entire community. She was in charge of marketing. It was grassroots movement. Planted the seeds in the college, dorms and whatnot. I remember being a freshman at SMU and like all the Bumble stickers were everywhere. And that was like the exact kind of playbook I wanted to use for Calling in Sick was, okay, I want a very tight-knit community We have a group chat. We do virtual hangouts. We do live events. We do giveaways, and it's really, really connected. How do I engage those people to want to do more than just be a community member and take a step further with me in it? And there's people that want to do that. So it's just asking, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. I have so many different threads that I could pull on in what you just talked about. I want to go back for a moment to this idea of guilt and letting go of not getting back to people right away. This is something that we see time and time again come up in our community. And I even struggle with it, right? Because when you're in a position where you're out there and you're sharing your story, everybody wants a piece of your time.
Yes.
And it's really hard to give a piece of your time to every single person who reaches out. It's just not possible. I always say, if I gave every single person who reached out to me 30 minutes on my calendar, I wouldn't be able to get anything done.
No.
I wouldn't be able to build the businesses that I'm building. And so I just encourage people to take a step back and think about, if it's not a hell yes, then it's got to be a no.
Agreed.
And you can open up opportunities for people like you. People are able to access you through, you're on your podcast and you're sharing your insights there, and you have all of these resources for your community. And so finding solace in that and remembering, I am building something really big and wonderful and beautiful that's going to reach a lot of people and make an impact. And if I give every single person who reaches out my time, I'm not going to be able to do that, right?
That was something I really struggled with when I first launched everything. It was specifically after I hit like a 10K threshold. Because under 10K, I could manage engagement. I could do all the DMs. I could get to inbox zero, which was like my dream always. And actually, it was one of my friends who's a therapist that I was venting to about this. And she was like, Alex, every single piece of content you put out is an engagement with that person. Anything on top of that is just the cherry on top. Like, that's not the piece. That's not the main cake. The main cake is what you're already doing. And anything else is just extra. And that's really nice when you can give the extra, but it's not necessary. In that same vein, I think it's really important to understand that our time is really valuable. It's so easy in today's society and our work culture. Like, most people are salaried. You don't understand what your dollar per hour is actually worth. But if you sit down and you wrote down everything you do in a day and how much you would spend to pay somebody else to do all of those things, add that up. What is your dollar per hour? Okay, so if someone wants to ask you a question like, hey, what are your diagnoses in your DMs? But they could go listen to my podcast or go find a post on my page. I'm not going to respond to that comment because it's already available for them. And that is not worth the dollar per hour to respond to that DM. And you have to be selective like that.
I just really love that you're talking about this, and that it's giving people permission to say, you own your time.
Yeah.
You are in charge of it. And just because you have white space on your calendar, like somebody reaches out, doesn't mean you need to offer them those times that week.
No.
It's like, okay, you're up to big things. If you're starting your own business, you've got a lot going on. You need to save that white space and save that time so that you can continue to build. So anyways, I wanted to really dive into that a little bit deeper. And I appreciate you sharing some more insights there, because it's just an issue I continue to see, especially to your point, for women who are in business, who carry this guilt, who want to people please. And again, it's easier said than done. I struggle with this a lot, saying no, putting up the boundary, but we've got to, for our business and also our health, right? Because you don't want to burn out.
We do. And I think, honestly, one of the biggest tricks that I've found that's helped me with this is time blocking. So on my calendar, I will put blocks on that say no meeting zone. And in the description, it's what am I doing during that time? Nobody can block over that time. That is a hell no. That time also, if I'm like, you know what? I'm exhausted and I need to lay down. That's fine. It's my time. I can do whatever I want with that. And I actually did that when I was in investment banking and in private equity too. And I would put 30-minute, an hour-long block on my schedule here and there throughout the week to protect my energy levels. And so if you are in the corporate workforce and you have a chronic illness, that is a hell yes thing to do. And if anyone gives you shit about it, you're probably working more than 8 hours anyway, which is above and beyond what your initial hiring description said. So you're fine.
Love a time block. That is one of the biggest pieces of advice when in the collective, when we're doing a mastermind and somebody will talk about, I just don't know how to keep up with everything I have on my plate. I'm like, are you time blocking?
Yep. Time blocking and a to-do list. Oh,
yes. So important.
Yes.
So, all right. Love it. Now, I want to jump in to an episode that you recorded for your podcast that I know is just spot on and will really resonate with our community. We're going to make sure we drop it in the show notes. But it was a podcast called How Chronic Illness Changes Our Definition of Ambition and Drive. And in this episode, you ask yourself if you are still ambitious, and you articulate this pivotal shift in your mindset that maybe ambition just looks different now. So, can you walk me through this? Like, tell me your thinking behind this, because again, I think it's just something that'll really resonate with our audience.
Yeah, I think so. When I recorded that episode, it was probably a year into breaking up with my very true form finance career. And I caught myself not being able to respond to every email. I found myself kind of dreading doing some of my to-do lists. Things had been left on there for weeks or months at a time. I just didn't feel that energy or excitement that I had felt a year prior when I had launched everything. And I remember sitting talking to Cooper thinking, am I just like lazy now? Like I'm not working in the workforce. Did I become lazy because I don't have something that's pushing me to go do this every day? And now I'm just relying on myself to push myself. Why do I feel this way? And after lots of discussions and therapy and whatnot, I came to the conclusion that success just had to look different to me now. I had to define it differently. I wasn't going to get a promotion at work. I wasn't going to get a raise or a bonus or something like that that would be a very tangible version of success. I also didn't have annual reviews anymore where people were telling me if I was doing well or not. So I had to think of different ways to define success for me. And when I looked at the creative side, it was really hard to have this whole new industry and space and say, okay, so how, like, what actually defines success here? What is happy here? And I realized I didn't care what the industry standard of success was. I needed to kind of look inwards and think, what gives me those glimmers, those bright spots, I want to respond to that email. Oh, I want to respond to that DM. What's that like common thread? And what I came to was, it was the reactions I was getting from people. So it's the DM from the husband that says, hey, my wife couldn't get out of bed for 3 months because she was in such crippling depression with her chronic illness identity. Your podcast has like ignited something in her. That makes me want to wake up every single day and do what I do. I want to recreate that for as many people as I can. So success to me is totally different now. It's more interpersonal. It's more emotion-based, I would say. And that feels really funny coming from a world of finance, but long run, I think that's like what success in life is. And that is probably a better North Star goal priority than what success in the workforce is.
Yes, that is exactly it. And we've been talking about this again a lot within the collective and with our cohort leaders, because a little side story here, when we were reorganizing the collective and the offerings that we were giving to our members, I sat down and I said, I wonder if we need to break this out a little bit differently by revenue stream. I'm in another group for women who make 6, 7, 8 figures a year, and they break their masterminds down by revenue streams. And so I had brought this to our cohort leaders and I said, should we be breaking this out by revenue? And they said, Lilly, that's not what we're about. And they were 100% right.
Yeah.
We're not just about making money. And our cohort leaders, a few of them said to me, I don't actually care about the dollar amount. I want to make enough to be comfortable and to be happy and to be able to take care of myself and enjoy life. And so it is success in life.
It's
and
success in life.
And health.
Yep.
And so thinking about what are those goalposts for us beyond or KPIs of life, if you will. So and those are KPIs are key performance indicators for anyone who does not come from the corporate world. But the idea that, okay, let's say you go out on your own, for the first year, you're an entrepreneur, and one of your KPIs is having less flares than you did when you were in corporate. Yep. That's an amazing KPI to have, right? Because that's a quality of life. That is mastering life and not just business.
I think so. And I think that what that allows you to do is it allows you to not get lost in one certain identity, because you're stretching yourself to have these KPIs that come from different arenas in your life. And if you're doing that, then if one cup's a little empty, one cup's a little too full, you can keep pivoting and find that reignition of ambition and success and whatnot, and find the momentum to keep going forward.
Yeah. Oh, we are so aligned,
I
Alex.
love it. I
We're
knew
so
we would
aligned.
be.
Okay. Now, another thing we like to do on our podcast is talk about your secret sauce and unlock it, if you will. So, at our Chronic Boss secret sauce is taking a skill. So, a concrete skill that you have, this could be creative problem solving, it could be finance, it could be marketing, and then you marry it with your superpower. And this is a unique gift or perspective you gained from living with a chronic condition. And you put those together, and that is your secret sauce that really fuels your success in the world and in business. And so I am curious, what do you think your secret sauce is?
That is such a good question. I feel like it's probably changed throughout the years, but right now, I think what it is I have a pretty analytical brain and I work in a really creative space now. So the way that I view engagement, social media performance, stuff like that comes from a really like numbers oriented place. I look for trends. I look for patterns. That's me. But my superpower is that I have high EQ. I love to connect with people. I love to talk. I love to storytell. And when you put those two things together, like you really can make some magic happen, I think, in the social media space, because you are attacking the problem from both sides.
Totally. And I'm sure your EQ has been developed even more from all of your experiences living with your chronic conditions, right?
100%. Oh my God. I think when I look back at life, not only my chronic illnesses, but also the illnesses that have hit my family. I don't know if this audience knows, but like my dad had testicular cancer. My brother had brain cancer. Other family members have dealt with some crazy health stuff as well in my immediate family. And watching them go through those things gave me also the caregiver perspective. And so when I think of the illness, chronic illness, identity, or EQ, I'm so grateful, however terrible that sounds, that I've also seen the other side of the table, because it's a more well-rounded approach, I think, to chronic illness, emotional intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you really do. You have this, you've got the analytical skill, which is so important for growing a brand and marketing and social media. You're pairing that with this superpower EQ. You probably had some level, you definitely had a level of EQ before you were diagnosed with all these chronic conditions, but it heightened it, right? It took it to a new level. And now you're using those two, you're marrying those two together. And your secret sauce is that you're really a social media superstar. You're making magic for, our community, which is really exciting. So we love to share that because it's a reminder to all of you who are listening that are living with a chronic condition that it can actually be an asset to you, right? Like there's a lot of time where we think of our chronic condition as something that brings us down or is holding us back, perhaps in our careers. But with a quick reframe, there are some really remarkable ways in which our chronic condition fuels us and makes us better as an employee, a business owner, and as somebody who's building their career. So I just think it's so important to remember that.
I think so too. I also would add that like the right company, the right place will notice that. The right colleagues. If you are stuck in a place like investment banking that doesn't support a chronic illness at all, let's call a spade, harder to thrive with your superpower regardless. So never feel like you're stuck. You can go from hard asset finance to social media content creating with that super skill that maybe just isn't being celebrated at the other place.
Beautifully said. Love it. So, Alex, you have done so much already. You've accomplished so much. What is next for you? What are you excited about? Where do you see Calling in Sick growing in the next year or couple years?
I feel like this is just the beginning, to be honest. Like, I feel like we're in the nascent years, and I'm trying to take every single like month and quarter and milestone and really just be grateful and sit in it and be thankful for those moments, because I know they're fleeting, right? Like you only get your first 1,000 likes one time. You only get your first 10,000 follows one time. So sitting and like celebrating each of those milestones has been massively important to me. And I am so excited for the future milestones, but I'm trying to just sit right now, I think, with the like current and be really happy about that. But when I look at what's next, it's growing the community even more. The podcast is like just starting to get to the tipping point where it's really growing and has legs. And I'm so excited and grateful. And I'm really proud of myself, candidly. Like I had such big imposter syndrome when I started launching all of this. I thought there's no way in hell I'm going to keep something alive by myself for a year. And here we are. And I'm like, I couldn't imagine my life without these things. So next on this is growing, calling in sick, the podcast tenfold. I would love
Yes.
to have maybe 2 episodes a week if I can swing it, and have like a community spotlight corner if I can. Quietly over the last year, I've actually teamed up with the ex-Bumble and ex-Fubo team, and we are building an app that should be launching later this year or early next. It's a extension of the Calling in Sick podcast, social media, orientation, community education with a little bit of AI baked into it, for all of us to go and gather without having to be at the mercy of algorithms that are pulling us apart and trying to tell us why we're all different and shouldn't agree with each other, when in reality, chronic illness is like probably one of the only cohorts in the entire world where it doesn't matter what your religious, political, socioeconomic background is. We share so many challenging life experiences that bridge us together. And so I wanted to create a space that was honoring that, and it was safe for anybody of any background to come. So that's on the horizon. After the TV show that I just was on, I got bit by that bug. So who knows? I would love to do more in that space. I am teaming up with some ex-HBO people and hopefully pitching a TV concept later this year too. So
Oh my
we'll see.
God,
Biting off more than I can chew,
fire.
for always.
This girl is on fire. I love it. I love how much you have on the horizon and how big you're thinking. And I just want to acknowledge that I also love how you're celebrating all of these wins, because I think it's very easy for us and those of us who are ambitious and who are always chasing the next thing to be like, okay,
Check.
did it. What's next? What's next? And not even sitting and taking a moment to appreciate and be proud of ourselves and be excited. And so I think that's a really amazing reminder. And I am so excited to see where you go next. I am
Thank you.
so thrilled that we have someone with your brain power and background really being a leader for the chronic illness community, and being a leader that reminds us it's not the only part of our identity. We are a lot of different things. We have a lot of different
Parts of us.
intersectionalities that make us who we are. And so you do a beautiful job with that. Please continue. And I hope that all of our listeners will go check out the Calling in Sick podcast and all the big things you have coming up. And so, yeah, Alex, where can people find you? What's the best way to be in touch?
Best way to be in touch is probably plugging in on socials with me. You can find me on Instagram or TikTok at Alexandra Wildeson, or you can reach out via the podcast, Calling in Sick Pod. And if you want to connect on venture capital stuff and pitching startup ideas or launching a brand, ping me on LinkedIn and we can chat about all things hot start and investing.
Fabulous. Well, Alex, this has been such an amazing discussion.
Thank you for having me. I love what you're doing. Let me just gush about you for a second. Thank you for building a space for our community to remind themselves that we can do more than what society tells us. I think a lot of the chronic illness growth journey is breaking up with the conception of what sick has to look like that society says, and saying, that's fine, but I'm sick in this way. And I'm going to honor that. And I'm going to honor my own boundaries, even if it looks totally different from someone else. And you saying, hey, let's find those superpowers so that you can do whatever you want and be sick however you are, is one of the most beautiful things, because you're unlocking life for people. So thank you for creating this space in this community.
My God, day maker, week maker, month maker. Thank you so much. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. And so with that, I'd love to ask you one final question. And
Sure.
Of course, that is, what does being a chronic boss mean to you?
That's a great question. I think being a chronic boss to me is making little Alex proud. I was sick. I've been sick since I was 6. I remember being in flare-ups, being in a wheelchair in elementary and middle school, and not knowing what life would look like. And over the last 25 years, I felt like an outsider in so many different times in my life because of my chronic illness. So being where I am today and not only embracing the fact that I'm sick, but saying, I am sick and I'm also all these other things is for that little version of me to say, it's okay that you're in a wheelchair at that point. That doesn't matter. It's going to create character in you, for lack of a better phrase, that will make you want to do great things in the future. And so I think being a chronic boss is making hold versions of you proud that were going through the chronic illness journey alone or felt alone, finding ways to have a really beautiful and special life.
Beautifully said, Alex. Thank you again for joining us today on Chronic Boss Unfiltered, and I hope we get to chat again soon.
Likewise, thank you, Lilly. This was such a treat.